Good morning and welcome to Complete Freedom from Anger. In this series, we are honored to have as a guest speaker Sharona Stillerman, currently based in Israel. And we had a few topics discussed in the previous sessions. Last week, someone was really grateful. They sent a comment saying how helpful that session was for them. And maybe there was attention on getting emotional addictions removed or addressed. I feel that was of great interest to many, even understanding that we can get into such a trap, which is an addiction at the emotional level. Even understanding that, starting to observe it, it's a great step forward. Today, we continue looking at our behavior and, in particular, looking at the consistency between thoughts, words, and actions. And in the recent course, participants were feeling that is a great achievement to be able to observe that your thoughts and your words are not always aligned. You are not always authentic, and you think something and you do something else. And there are different solutions that we all put in place to deal with that. Some of us postpone that action until we feel we are really authentic and congruent with what we feel. Others are trying to transform their thoughts immediately, or others are working at the level of emotions. What would you say is a best way to increase consistency in thoughts, words, and actions?
Yeah, thank you, Johanna, and Om Shanti to everyone. Now I understand the question a bit more. You're talking about congruency. I interpreted the word consistency originally as constant, being consistent, being constant. So it's a slightly different question here. I think all the methods that you just described are valid, especially if we're always ready to keep changing the method, because our aim is to come into a new relationship with myself. And anytime you're talking about relationship, there has to be newness, If you've met somebody and you'd like to get to know that person more, you don't go out to the same outing every day and take up the same subject every day. The relationship couldn't flourish with its, if it's the same cafe, same topic of conversation and same everything. So for this evolving relationship with ourself, we need variety. So all of those methods are good, and to keep moving around them is also good. But I also feel that there's a kind of seed effort which has to be happening in addition to all these other things, because if we work with just the symptoms of an issue, our results will always be temporary. They will work for a certain situation or a certain moment, but not become permanent and imperishable. So what's the seed of not being congruent? It's still not having faith that I am what truth tells me I am. I think that means there could be many ways of saying this particular seed. But I think speaking about faith is a more potent entry point into it, because I can work on my faith. I can work on my faith. And that's what a spiritual study should be enabling, the ability to create knowledge-based faith, not blind faith, but a knowledge-based faith in truth. Because here we learn that the truth of the soul is to be very elevated and very good people. And it doesn't matter to what extent that goodness has been invaded by all sorts of awful characteristics. The truth of the soul is to be very loving, very joyous, very peaceful, and strong, powerful. So how much do I believe that that's what I really am and how I really am? Because as much as I work on that through every means I can come up with, I'll find that there's a kind of extra force, a companion energy to my desire not to be one thing on the outside while something else entirely is going on in the inside. There's a companion energy. In other words, there's this growing confidence that I can do better. And that begins to interfere. That begins to interfere with a programmed, automatic way of speaking, reacting, behaving. Hold on, I can do better here. And as we reach for that true self, the beautiful self, just in a second, I have a different response. It's as if I've opened the door to truth and she's working with me again and for me. Untruths also are a force. And while my truth is not ruling me, which is why we start a spiritual practice, because I feel like I've become someone I don't really know anymore, or I don't even kind of like anymore. Often that's why we start a spiritual practice. It's because untruths have taken over the show, have taken over my character. So the whole effort here is to allow truth once again to hold the reins and run me. So do I believe that this is who I really am? I would say efforts on this are the most liberating, I should say. Does that help? Oh, you're on mute, Johanna. Sorry.
Yes, very much. Untruth has a force. Would you like to detail a little bit more? We can all see that force that makes us even tell lies or manipulate or hide things to present to the outer world an image that is false. And what is the energy of this untruth and how we can reduce it, if not even completely remove it?
It's a big question. I like to call this force the force of evil. Spell evil backwards and you have live, live. So if we look at the world today, everything is backwards, everything's upside down. We're hardly living. The best of us and the healthy of us recognize that something's gone terribly wrong. And it is this materialism, consumer society, which has just been too easily available to use to replace a hurt heart, and the feelings of the negative feelings that come when you lose the soul in all that consumerism and materialism and externally based sense of yourself. You following me? See what I mean? So the way we best confront this force of evil, which is not just inside the soul, it's manifested in the world. This is why we have relationships like we do. They're messed up. They're so difficult. There's hardly any of that live, original force. And then we have neighborhoods like we have, and then communities, and then a world like we have. So the best way to confront that force is, I think, first and foremost, this spiritual work of cultivating understanding, recognition, and awareness of my true self. Because then I let go of a lot of the externals, which otherwise I'm using. I use other people's successes and other people's qualities to try to figure out my own value. Am I like that? Or, oh, I'm not like that, at least. This is all very unstable ground to base your sense of yourself and your value in. Or I'm important and I'm useful because of the position I hold at work, or the kind of car I ride or drive, or the cell phone I have in my hand. All of these things distance us from the soul energy, which is the energy of truth. They distance us. We lose ourselves in matter and all this external stuff. So to keep coming back. And this is not to say we're not going to enjoy the Mercedes Benz if we have one, or the best kind of phone, or even have the ambition to get a good position at work. But to balance it. My value should never be on the basis of any of those things, but on the basis of that relationship, that new relationship with myself, in which I experience the love, the peace, the joy as energies inside, not to mention the energies coming to me from above in a new relationship with the Supreme Soul. The evil force is extremely strong, and it is a battle. We should know that we're in for a battle. Greek mythology portrays a battle going on between the gods and goddesses and the devils. They position this battle up in the sky somewhere with chariots raging, but it's not up there, and it's not even out there. Whatever are the battles going on out there are because of the battle going on inside. We are literally in the times where evil is being confronted by good. Anybody who raises their hand in front of God and says, I would like to help you in this task, reestablishing the rule of goodness and truth and beauty, they're welcome to do this, but this is the work. You're stepping onto the battlefield and you're full out confronting evil. And I feel that even understanding that and signing the contract, if you will, with yourself, with God, with truth, helps. because you understand this is much bigger than just me. It's much bigger. The world is what we have. The world we have is because a critical mass number of souls have not yet done this work and enabled truth to rule in their own self, because we just need a critical mass number of souls doing this work for this night, this world of evil to finish, and the day, a world of peace and harmony to start. So understand, you're up against much, much more than just your own, the evil that has been generated by your own bad habits. Your own bad habits have contributed to a huge opponent to truth called evil. And that's working full force to keep that critical mass from emerging. So understand, with this work, you're coming onto a battlefield. Be prepared. I don't know if that helps.
It helps a lot to be able to see with detachment and with lightness, to observe it, and to share that sense of being safe, no matter what. That's why many people now are attracted towards these topics of removing anger or removing negativity, as they start to understand that that is an enemy, that is your opponent. Is not that another person is my enemy, but those bad habits, that force of evil. And looking at the force of good, force of truth, and in particular using the word noble, a noble mind and a noble personality, to really connect our intellect with such a beautiful option that we all have in all conditions, no matter what. Whatever is happening, I can raise above that story and remain noble. Can you explain a little bit more what is the essence of nobility in human character and human personality?
Well, if I'm grasping what you mean by essence, and just continuing the theme of today's talk, the essence of nobility is truth, right? And truth is something highly principled, very ethical, with integrity. And what we're saying is that this is how we've been made. I'd like to share a story which also might kind of color what we're saying here a little bit more vividly. You imagine that there's a young boy, his name is George, growing up in the slums of his city. And just in order to survive, he's learned all the tough language and the tough mannerisms. Early, when he started going to school, on his way to school, he would notice the lone flower pushing its way through slabs of concrete on the sidewalk. But when he would stop to admire it or be curious about it or love it, his friends would really tease him and give him a hard time. So he learned to stop that. He also loved science class. He loved it, but that also was considered sissy, or, according to the gangs and the friends he knew he needed to keep, he also had to bury that enthusiasm for science. So he ended up looking just like all the kids, tough and loud and ugly, mean character. So one day there's a knock on his door, and he looks out the window and he sees there's a limousine outside. And he opens the door, and it's the chauffeur of the limousine. And the chauffeur is saying, excuse me, but are you George Einstein? Because the last name is, oh, sorry, I just blew that there. Are you George Smith? Yeah. And the young fellow says, yeah, I'm George Smith. So what? What's it to you? And the chauffeur says, well, I'm sorry, but there's been a horrible mistake at the hospital, and you're not George Smith. You're George Einstein. You're the son of Einstein, and he has been looking for you all these many years, and he is so, so happy to have found you. So please get in the car so I can take you home. And the fellow gets in the car, arrives at a mansion. There's no poverty in the whole neighborhood. There's a whole science lab in the basement. And now he's got a dad who not only relates to his curiosity, love for science and the miracle of a flower, but there's a weekly allowance. He's rich. And lots of love, patience, acceptance, faith in him, a look on him with a vision of faith. So, do you like that story?
It's a true story.
It's a true story, because the question is, how long will it take this George Smith to understand that he's really not George Smith? The whole upbringing is what's created the character he is today, but that's not really him. He's really George Einstein, and there's now this whole other environment, surrounding influence, including a father who adores him. How long will it take him to understand these things? How long will it take him to believe these things? How long will it take him to accept these things? Accept is different from belief. Accept means I start living accordingly. I relax, and it's not theory. It's my truth. It's a truth. How long for these things? But then also, what will it take? What will it take for him to understand to the point of believing and accepting? Because this is the challenge we're looking at now. We are noble by virtue of being created in the image of God. We're very noble. God has very high principles, ethics, integrity. But we have been growing up in upside down neighborhoods with upside down influences and environments, and we have buried our divinity. Nobility means no divinity in practice, expression. We've buried it, we've suppressed it, we've denied it for many different reasons. It just didn't, it wasn't cool to be honest anymore at some point. It wasn't cool to be good. So what will it take for me to believe this and accept it for my life? I personally, my own story, I would say it takes time. but it takes a lot of quality time with this father. Myself, I don't see how I can change around the habits, not just of, say, in George Smith's story, 15 years, but actually we're looking at the habits of lifetimes. I wouldn't ever have been able to break through them if I didn't give quality time to my relationship with the Supreme Soul. He's looking at me with that vision of faith. He believes in me. He knows the truth of me. He knows me better than I know me because I'm his child. And I'm still just a child. But if the whole concept of God is still something you're learning about or learning to relate to, then just see truth as that parent. And that truth is inside you. See love, peace, joy inside you as that parent, because it's there. And that's why we like those things. And we don't like hatred, anger, selfishness, greediness, doubts. We don't like that. Why? Because that's not how we've been made. We've been made divine, royal, noble, very beautiful. So what's my faith in that?
Very clear. And flying through the journey is one aspect of having faith, taking everything with patience, as you said, and trust. And why not? You said the truth can be our father. Taking that step of courage and responsibility to become yourself a mother of truth, to become yourself someone who starts to protect the truth within you. You have understood something about you. You have started to connect it to the Supreme Soul. Now be yourself a mother of the truth. Protect that, grow that, share it with others, and don't allow anything from that force of evil to suppress it.
Yeah. Yeah, well said. That's so beautiful. It's like we can get angry. We can do whatever we want, quote unquote. But the thing is, it is a choice. Maybe that choice was made long ago and by now it's a habit and I'm not thinking that I'm choosing something. But become very, very clear about the consequences of your choices. There are such devastating consequences of allowing anger. You need to test this out and prove it to yourself. And that also helps a determination to explore a bit deeper, put my finger on that divinity, be that mother to that baby angel inside and nurture her. Because when we respond, if there's no other power other than to not react, but just stay silent, we feel so good afterwards. We feel so proud of ourselves. And we're not in half the mess that we would have been if we would have reacted. Every time we go for that baby angel, be the mother, as you were saying, to that baby angel and allow her, nurture her, we feel so good. If I've gone a little bit out of my way to help someone, if I've gone a little bit out of my way to be generous in my thinking about someone and something I'll say to that person, we feel so good afterwards. So experimenting with this also helps the process because there's no argument about it. Goodness makes us feel good. I should say great. And badness, heading towards evil, makes us feel very bad. And before our eyes, we become evil people, which is not a life, you know, it's not living.
Yeah, someone recently said that in just a few weeks they experience that anger is not their nature anymore. They said it's not in my character anymore to get angry. I don't know what you are talking about. I can replace that with emerging. It is in my character to be noble, without any ego or arrogance, but with that purity, innocence of nobility.
This is pure pride, and this is
Pure.
the true wealth. And it's 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 the beginning to give myself true value whenever I respond to life in a nurturing, living capacity. This is what's gone wrong. We've all ended up takers, and now there isn't anyone left who can give this real stuff. So everyone's walking around on empty.
Yeah. Thank you, Sharona. A very beautiful series of insights in just 30 minutes. I'm sure we will reflect on them and put them into practice. Let us share for a few moments that vision of nobility, that vision of divinity, and also experience, even for a moment, that we can be victorious. Thank you. Thank you, Sharona. We meet again next week. Bye bye.